Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second class and the Android development training in KodeCamp 3.0. My name is Kate Kacham, and we'll be looking at advanced UI and material design, right? That's basically what we're going to be looking at today, and then hopefully we have enough time. We'll actually just, get into Android Studio and do a few things, right? So let's just kick that off. Of course, at any point, you can't hear me, please just call my attention through the chats, and I think I'll notice that. Okay, so what we'll cover today, well, yeah, let's say today we'll be looking at advanced layout techniques, but strictly on constraint layout. I think in the last class we talked about constraint layout and how that's basically what we're going to be using all through. And then of course we'll also look at material design principles and theming. And then of course animation and transition. So this is basically what we're going to cover, right, as far as advanced UI and material design is concerned. Okay, and then yeah, so that's basically that. So talking about constraint layouts, right, we of course usually know that is actually a view group. It's a layout, right? And you have used it before. So but we're basically going to be looking at the features, right, of some of the constraint layout features. Now, one thing you need to know is that you must set at least two constraints, okay? You must set at least two constraints on a view, right? One horizontal and one vertical. To actually position a view element properly on your screen, right? You must give it at least two constraints, right? Which is either one on the horizontal axis and another one on the vertical axis, right? If you don't do that, of course, at runtime, it goes to, the 0, coordinates. So we're going to be looking at chains. We're going to be looking at bias, ratios, guideline, barrier, group, circular positioning, and then of course constraint sets, right? These are the features of the constraint layouts we are going to be looking at, right, before we get our hands dirty. So for chains, right, a chain basically is a group of views that are linked to each other with bidirectional position constraints, right? Okay, so the views within that chain, you can distribute them either vertically or horizontally. So you can see we have this first one, which is the spread, right? So spread here, elements they are evenly distributed, right, along this axis, the x-axis here, right, where you go from left to right. They are evenly distributed. Actually, this is the default style for chains, right? Spread, right? When you actually chain a group of views, the default is actually the spread, right? So we also have the spread inside. So for spread inside, you can see elements are spread to use the available space within the head and tail attached to the parent. So you can see the first one is attached here, second one attached here, and then the one is all in the middle, right? So they use the available space, right, with the head and the tail are what's attached to the parent. So the first view and the second one is attached to the parent, and of course the third one just stays in the middle, uses this available space, right? That's for the spread inside chain. We have the weighted chain, right? Here you can see that, but elements here, they are usually resized to use all the available space according to the specified weights, right? According to the specified weights, with the head and the tail glued to the parent. So when we talk about the head and the tail, it's more like the first view and the last view. So if you put a chain on 4 views, right, the first and the last, that's the head and the tail, right? So, but this is based on what weight. You actually have to specify the weight. And then of course we have the packed, right? We have the packed. So the packed here, elements are just packed to use minimum space. So they just use minimum space. That's why you see they're just packed together. So there's no much distance between each of them, right? And then of course we have the packed with bias, right? Packed with bias. They actually use the minimum space, but they are moved, on their axis depending on bias. I'm sure you guys have used bias before, the horizontal bias. So you just pack this, and then more like you can actually just click and drag, right? That's just packed, but with a bias, right? So they're just moved on their axis, but it's depending on the bias. So these are just several ways that you can actually align or constrain your views, right, with respect to what chains, okay? Yeah, we'll get to use some of these things. Now, the other one is bias. So when a view is constrained on, it's constrained to both sides, right? We talked about bias in the previous slide. So let's look at it. When you constrain a view to both sides on either of the axis, either the x-axis or the y-axis, it is centered on that what axis, and the bias value is set to 50%. So of course, if you check your constraint layout, you've actually done that, where you actually place a view and then you want to constrain it horizontally. You click here down to the end, you click the other one. So by default, it is centered on that axis, either x-axis or y-axis, and the bias value is set to 50%. Now, of course, you can adjust this bias by using your slider, right, which is here, right? You can find that here. Just use your slider, or you just click and just drag it. You can adjust what bias. Now, of course, we have ratios. So, of course, in constraint layout, you can set the size. You can actually, what is a GIF, right? This is a GIF, so you can actually see that. You can actually set the size of a view by defining its aspect ratio, right? So of course, what you basically just do is set at least one of the view dimensions, whether the height or the width, right? Or even both of them. When you set it to 0 dp, which is match constraint, right? Then you can actually implement the ratio, right? So this is just an illustration of how you do that. So you set the width here to 0 dp, right? And then you click just here, right? And then you can set the ratio, right? Either 1:1 or 16:1, right? And then you get this. So that's basically how you handle ratios, right? And then of course we have guideline, right? Guideline is actually a helper object. It helps you to create a horizontal or vertical guidelines, and they are positioned relative to the constraint layout or container, and they basically just help you to constrain other views. So you can actually see this here. So when you create this guideline here, and then you just align this view, you can actually just constrain it to this particular guideline. So basically, this view will not extend past that guideline, right? It won't extend past that guideline. So we actually use it to kind of constrain element. So yeah, that's basically that, right? Of course, how to add it, you can actually see that from the um GIF, right? Just so once you add it, you just drag the dotted line, right? You just drag the dotted line by holding the circle to reposition it, right? So you just grab this dotted line, right, and just click. You can hold this circle above here to just drag, right? And it's actually measured in dp from the left edge of the corner. Of course, it starts from here, so you can actually do it in dp, or even do it in as a percentage, right? Let's say 40% of the screen, 50%, 60%, or and the likes, right? Okay, so that's just for guidelines. I will get to also use these things. Now, of course, we have barrier, right? Barrier is actually similar to guideline, but the difference is that it doesn't actually need to have a fixed position. A guideline actually has a fixed position, but a barrier doesn't actually need to have a fixed position. It can move based on the position of the views that it contains. You can actually see that, representation here on this GIF, right? So they are useful when you're actually laying out internationalized strings, or probably you're displaying a user-generated content that you don't even know the size, right? Like, for example, a bio, right? A bio. So probably the user will actually type in a bio and save. So you don't even know the size. You don't know how, except you explicitly say that you want the characters to be 100 or so. But if you don't, you probably don't know the size of that string, right? So barriers are actually what's good. That's what you use. That's where barriers actually come in, right? So they just help you to constrain your your views, right, and the elements, right? So that's basically how basically what barrier actually what does, right? And then of course we have groups, right? This is actually very, very straightforward, right? So you actually use group to basically just group certain views together, so you can perform one action on all of them, right? Of course, let's say actions like probably visibility, right? So instead of setting visibility of one, visibility of this particular view, you set visibility, you can actually group them, right? And then set a visibility on them. So once you group them, they now become a group, right? And then you can now set your visibility on what's each of them, right? So that's basically how that works. Of course, you can see that's done in the GIF. You just highlight the three of them, right? You right click and then you go to helpers and then you see add group, right? And that adds a group to them. So you click on the three of them and just drag them into the group and then you can see each of them, right? So that's how the group actually works. And then of course, the circular positioning, right? Also have the circular positioning. This one basically allows you to constrain a widget's center relative to another widget at an angle and a distance. Of course, this is something you're going to actually use because we're going to, of course, I just gave you a task to build a notebook app, simple UI, but we will, from that UI we did, we're going to what advance it. We're going to use more advanced stuff to what make it a bit much what better. But what I just gave you guys is just something skeletal, something to just start with, right? So of course, it allows you to position a view element in a circular formation around the central world view. So you can see this GIF here. The central view here is this particular floating action button. So, but when you click on it, you get to see these other ones, right, in this circular formation, right, in a circular formation. So that's actually circular positioning. And then, of course, we have the constraint sets, right? It allows you to create and save constraints defined using a constraint layout. So you can actually apply them to an existing constraint layout, right? So you create a constraint, right? And you save it, right? And then you can use it to what apply to other constraint layouts, right? So you can also use it to create animations very easily. So what you just do, you define a starting layout, how the layout looks when it starts, and then how it looks, when it ends, the final what layout, and then the rest is just handled automatically by the constraint set class, right? Okay, so this is just a brush through that, right? So well, let's actually we're going to build this now. Okay, I think we have time, so we're going to actually work on this in this class, right? So of course, if you're with your Android Studio, you can open and then we do it together, or you just follow through and then we work that out later. So we're going to design complex UI using Android constraint layout, just like you're seeing in this GIF, right? Okay, so I think that's that about the slide. If you have questions, I'll just answer it while we get into the whole coding stuff, right? So let's do some coding, right? Let's get there. So let me share my Android Studio. Let me share my Android Studio. Please let me know when you see my Android Studio. Let me know on the chat if you can see my Android. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I just want to let me see. Let me just zoom. Okay. Let me just see. I think right. Okay, so just want to. Okay. Okay. All right, let's just do this right. Alt and then. Okay, so let's get right to it, right? Okay, so first things first. First things first. Let's set up a few things. So I think I've already imported my images, right? A few images I'm going to use, right? So let's see. So I'm going to go to let's go to our main layout. So for here, it's going to be our activity main, right? Okay, so I'm going to add. So this layout, right, is going to consist of a menu button, right? It's going to consist of a menu button, a cover image, and its description, right? A menu button, a cover image, and a description. So that's basically what we're going to do. So we'll start by placing the menu button. So I'm going to use an image button, Okay, so let's just I'm going to use an image button for this. Okay, so for the width, let me just use 48 dp, and then for the height, I'm going to use 48 dp, right? Let's give it an ID, right? I'm going to call it menu button. Okay, so let's give it a margin start of 16 dp, and a top margin also, and a top margin of 16 also is fine. Of course, you can't actually see all those until we actually constrain it. So I'm going to constrain the top to the top of the parent, and then I'm going to constrain start. So you remember we said to actually constrain a view, at least one vertical, one horizontal. So we're good. So I don't want a background. So I've taken out that background, that gray background that was there. And then let's see, let's get an icon I'm going to use there. Sorry. Let's see what we have in our vector assets. Let's see. Let's see if I'll get what I'm looking for. Yeah, still loading. Okay, still loading. So probably just okay, so yeah, let's use this. I just want to use something a bit. So I'm going to just call this IC, that's for icon, shots of icon, and I think black is fine. So finish that, and then so I'm going to use my SRC compacts. I think I'd want to use the app.src compact, right? Okay, so I'll get the IC scatter. Okay, so you have that. Let me probably just zoom in a bit so you can see it. Let's close this out a bit. Okay, so let's just close this out. Right. Okay, so let's move. So I'm going to add two guidelines, right? I'm going to add two guidelines to basically just help me in placing a cover image and other view elements on the screen, right? So remember I said for the guidelines, you can actually use DP or percentage. I'm actually going to use percentage. So let's create a guideline, right? There are a lot of ways. You can actually just do the coding, the code part, but you can also just right click, go to help us, and then I'm going to actually get a vertical guideline, right? So that just helps me here. So, but let me rename this and call it left guideline. Left guide line, right? And then of course orientation is vertical. So for this I'm going to say, so you can see this is actually 20 dp from the left, right? But I don't want to use dp, right? I don't want to use the guide begin. That's the works with the dp. I want to use the percent. So I'm just going to use the guide percent, and then 0.15, that's 15%, right? Okay. And then of course I want to give another guideline. So this for the left, I want to also give for the right. So I'm just going to copy this, right? And then paste that here. So I'm going to change this to right guideline. And then so this should be 15% from the other place. So let's that's 85%. So these are guideline from here down to this place, right? That's our guideline. These, if you can hear me, just drop a message on the chat. I mean, I'll need to be sure that, you know, I'm not speaking to myself, right? You can hear me, drop a message on the chat. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, so next we're going to add the text view too. So basically what I'm just doing, just a movie, just going to do a movie UI, right? So I'm going to add the text view to probably show the status of that movie, right? So let's go there. I'm going to do this quickly, right? So the text view, of course, just RAW content. Sorry. And then RAW content. Okay, so okay. So let's go okay. So a constraint, right? So I'm going to constrain the top of this text to the bottom of let's say to the bottom of the menu button, right? Yeah, it's constrained that's there. And then the start of it should be to this start of the left guideline, right? Okay, good. Right. So if I'm just to put a text, right, I'm just going to let me just put a text so we see you. Okay, so this is basically what we have, right? Yeah, so it should just be there, right? Let's give a top margin of let's say 16 dp, or that'll be too big. Let's just do 8 dp. Okay. So there are a few things you can actually do, right? But I'm not really going to focus myself on beautifying this text, right? Probably can do that later. Okay, so that's for our text view, right? So let's add an image view that will act as the cover. Okay, so let's get in our image view here as a cover photo. So for the image view, right? Now I'm going to use ratios, right? I'm going to use a ratio. So let me show you, let's just from what we saw, I'm going to switch to design mode, bring in our image view here, right? Okay, I already have the image, but let's see. Okay, so don't worry, I know it's not a clear image. Don't worry, we'll sort that out. You can get any other image. So I'm going to add, so I've added that. So I'm going to constrain it to the guidelines, right? And then set a ratio of about 2. Let's say let's give it a ratio. So first of all, the left, right, to this guy, the right to this guideline, right? And of course, I want the top to be to this one. Okay, yes, good. So then I'm going to give it a margin top here of 36, right? I'm going to give it a margin top of 36. Now, okay, so remember, if we want to make use of guidelines, then we have to, sorry, ratio. If we want to set a ratio, like we said, we have to make sure that either the height or the width is 0 dp or both of them, right? So for this, I'm going to just make let me make both of them to be 0 dp so that it matches the constraint. So immediately I do that, you can see I have this guy here, right? I just click on it, and then I'm going to say 2:3. 2:3, right? Right. So you see how that now, kind of increases the image, right? Okay, so that's that. And then of course, a few things that we can actually just do from a code perspective, right? You can see our ratio here, constraints dimension ratio that we added. And then let me just do a scale type for this image, right? I think I'm going to a center crop, right? And then of course there are other things. So let's say a top margin. Have I given it? Okay, I've given a top margin. So let me give a start of 16. Let me give an end of 16, right? The other things you should actually give, right, like your content description and all the stuff like that, right? But of course, you can just switch that. Okay, so yeah, I think this status, well, shouldn't be text view, right? Let's say status. You need to always name your stuff as a status, and then this should be cover. Okay, so we're good, right? So now I want to add some other details, right? I want to add some other details about this movie, right? I want to add some details about this movie. So it's going to be, and I'm going to use a vertical chain, right? Okay, so yeah, sorry for that. Let's continue. Please confirm you can hear me. Confirm you can hear me, please. Let's move on. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, let's move ahead. Okay, so what basically want to give it a title to this movie, right? So let's call this, of course, the movie title Wakanda Forever, right? Okay, but of course, I want the top of it to be constrained to the bottom of this guy. So I could just drag this to make it easy, right? And of course, the start to the start of the guideline, right? And then the bottom. So I'm going to add another. Let's just do this. I need about 3 text views. Yeah, so I want to have a movie title, a description, and then a rating for the movie, right? So for description, I'm just going to say something, the best movie ever. Later we'll extra string resource and all this stuff, right? So and then so for this one, they're all constrained to each other, right? So but let me, and then for a rating, let's just say um mm, let's see. Let's say two. Okay, let's say it's a 9.8 over 10, right? So description, best movie ever. I'll say action, sci-fi, right? I hope that's how they. And then you can also put a duration, right? 2 hour, 20 minutes. So that's the description. Of course, we have not talked about the size and everything, but we'll look into that, right? So let's see. Yeah, I think that, so what we're going to, let's constrain these guys, right? Let's constrain these guys. So the first one, which is the title, right, is at the bottom of the cover, which it should be start to the left guideline, right? So I want the bottom. So before that, let's okay, let's put let me, let's say the bottom should be at the top of the description, right? Let's just keep that there. Now for the description, looking at this, how would, okay, we would want description to be, the bottom of the description should be to the top of the rating, right? So it sits on it, right? And then the top of it should be to the top, to the bottom of, do we have a top to bottom already? Okay, so it should be top to bottom of the movie title, right? And then, of course, start of guideline. So let's just do this. And then, so for the rating, so let's take this one down to the parents, right? And then the top to the bottom of description. Okay, I already have that. So let's change this to the description. Okay. So so this is how it looks, right? So let's actually now, kind of chain them. Let's use a vertical chain, right? Let's use a vertical chain. So just select this, right? Select this and then select this, right? So right click, add helper, right? Okay, see your chain. So vertical chains, and I'm going to choose packed, right? So you can see you see packed, right? So that's basically that. So let me do a few things, right? So let's say a top margin of 24, well, let's say 24 dp, right? And then a start of let's say 16 dp, right? So I'm just going to for this one, they should all have a start. And this one, say, but let's it have a bottom margin of 16 dp so that it breathes. This one also, the rating should have a margin start and then also a bottom of 16 dp. Okay, so yeah, so we have something like this, right? Yeah, not really very beautiful, but of course let's just finish up, right? So we are not done. So there are a few things I want to add. We'll get into also from here, we'll actually also get into animation, right? We'll get into animation. So let's see. So we're going to add two more layouts, right? We're going to add two more layouts. One is going to be the layout for the, basically just for transitioning to and fro. Remember, we have the start and then the end. So we'll have two layouts. First will be the cover layout, and the second will be a description what layout. Cover layout and then description layout, right? Okay, so if another thing I think I want to do, let's see. Okay. Okay, so let's just move on. Let's move on. So I'm going to add, let's have another layout, right? So I'm going to just create a new resource file, call this cover layout. Okay, so that's the cover layout, right? Okay, so let's see how this is going to be, right? It's basically what we have actually, but we're going to add a few more things, right? We're going to add, it's going to be like, it's going to be a lot though, and I hope we can finish it. actually. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to just copy this and make a few edits. Okay, so let's see. We have our image button, right? Okay, so let's keep that there. We have our cover image, right? Which is, the whole, the Wakanda and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so let's see. And we have two guidelines. I think I'm trying to see what else we're going to add. So let's add a few more things, right? Let's add a few more things. So this is the rating. So I'm going to add some casts, right? I want to, the cover image, you should have like a cast, right? Should have a cast. So the cast basically is, people that, kind of acted the movie, something like that, right? So that's basically what we want to do. So let's just try out that and see how it looks like, right? So it's going to be an image view. Um, so I'm going to, I think I would want the width to just be 50 dp. For the height, just do a 0 dp there. Let's call it cast 1. Okay. And then of course I'm going to need a start margin of 16 dp. So let's add the constraints, right? So but before we do that, we're going to use I'm going to actually use a chain, right? I'm going to use a chain for this guy. But before then, I'm going to do a chain and a ratio. But let's do something. So the first image, the very first one, so scale type of center crop. Okay, and then I think I have a drawable. That I have, what did I call it? Okay. Cast 1. Okay, so this is what we have. So I know it's long, this is it here, right? But don't worry, we'll fix that, right? We'll fix that. So let's say we want to bottom to the bottom of cover. So constrain the bottom to the bottom of the cover, right? You can see that bottom to the bottom of the cover, right? Then start to the end of parent. So I'm going to say the start should be constrained to the end of the parent, right? And don't worry, it feels like it has disappeared, but don't worry. Don't worry, it has not disappeared. Okay, so and then let's add a few more things, right? Okay, let me give it a horizontal bias. We need to push horizontal. Yeah, so let's kind of, let's say 0.5, right? Okay, done. And then okay, let me give it a ratio. So you can also, a ratio is something you can just add by yourself, right? Let's see, so that's your width, and then 1:1. So you can see it kind of makes it smaller, right? Makes it smaller. Okay, and then let's just sorry. So this is me doing some of these things with code instead of having to do drag and drop. So it's the chain style for this particular one is going to be spread inside, right? For this particular image, right? It's going to spread inside. So let's leave that there. Now we're going to have a cast 2, the second person. right? So let's say this first, we have probably just use 3 casts, right? Okay, let's just say this is cast 2. This is cast 3, right? Okay, so for cast 2, right? I'm just going to change this to bottom, right? So let me switch so you can see both of them, right? Let's just concentrate on the blueprint. Good. Okay, so yeah, that's that. So this actually is going to be to the bottom of a description, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yep. Yeah, so let's do that. Okay, so let's do bottom to top, rather. Okay. So I think, what did we use to name this? Okay, description. Good. So that's fine. Okay, cast 2, and then let's see. So for this, I think I would want the height, right? And then so we have the bottom to top of this guy, right? And then let's do the end to the start of, right? Instead of start to end, so we're going to use end to so end to the start of. We're going to create a button, right? So let me just, because I'm going to need one. I'm going to need a button. I'm going to need a button. I'm actually creating a very complex UI, which you will actually see when I'm done. So let's say 0 dp, right? And then 50 dp for the height of the button, right? And then of course, so I actually also need, as I text you, just want to copy something. So I want to add an info. I want to add an info, right? So let me do this here. Or okay, after the bot. Okay, so for this movie info, so it's more like it's going to just be a description of the movie, right? This is not just, this is more like a detailed and detailed information, right? So I'm going to take this out. So for the text, right, I could just start by saying this is the info regarding Wakanda forever, right? Okay, so the constraints are very important. So let's constrain that. So basically, I want to just do top to the bottom of the cover. That's where I want that to be, right? Just below that, below there. Of course, end to the end of parent. End to end of parent, right? So that pushes that out there. For the movie info. So let's give an end. Kind of just want to push it a bit. Let's say of 24 dp, top of 16 dp, right? You can see how that is actually moving. And then well, there's no need for a start. It's not constrained, so you won't see it. So let's just keep that out. When we want to test it out, we get to see how it looks like. So for the button, let me come down to the button, because yeah, I wanted the button to rest on that guy. So 0 dp for the width of the button, and 50 dp for the height, and then a margin bottom. Let's use 16 dp. So I want to constrain the bottom of this to the top of the movie info, right? Good. So we have that there. And then the start of it should be to the end of our cast 2, right? So that will just place that there. Okay, but I also, let's give this button a ratio, right? Yeah, let's give it a ratio. Okay, so the width stays the same, well, right? And then the height on, say, 1:1. Okay, so for the width, just 1:1 for the width, right? Okay, well, that's basically that. So this is basically this button basically. So imagine, where you get to see, you just see a few casts of people, right? You know how these movie stuffs are being set up, right? Okay. ID, let's just call this button. Right. Okay. So can also give it a background. Let's just give it a background color. Do I have a gray kind of? I don't have a gray. Oh, don't worry. Let's just use a color that. Let's see what colors are available, and make it stand out. Right. Can check that later. Uh, okay. Let's just use black. Don't worry. We'll change that later when we see how things look. Right. Okay. So that's that. Now I don't think I've touched this cast 3. Okay, I think we've done cast 1, cast 2, right? We've actually looked at cast 2. So okay, but we need to constrain it, right? So so the bottom of this should be to the top of the movie info, right? Good. That places that there. Now I'm going to say end to the start of the button. So the end should end to start of button, right? Okay, and then let's see, that's basically that. So then the start, can I have a start to end of, okay, good. That should be okay, sorry, I think I'm actually on the wrong view. Okay, so cast 2, yeah, okay, yeah, so this should be start to end of cast 3. Yeah. Okay, so you can see 3 of them are there. So I'm going to bring them in actually. So now don't worry about that. So horizontal bias, just give that. Okay, so for the cast 3, right? Let's see. Okay, we already have that. So it's bottom to the bottom of the cover. But I kind of want, we pasted that, right? So the bottom should be to the top of the movie info, right? Okay, and then okay, so let's say the end should be to the start of cast 2, right? And then start to the end of cast 1. So okay, so yeah. Okay, so let's see it. Okay, we have our description and then all the stuff. Okay, so I'm good. There are a few things to add, right? But let's just, this is just going to be the cover image, right? It's something that we're going to actually now show when, we're going to use some animations to actually show it though, right? So use some animations to show it. Okay, so I had already done this, and then of course our time is really, really fast spent. So I'll probably just paste some of them, and then of course the code is going to be available. But I want to show us, really want to just show us the what's it called? Really just want to show you how the whole animation thing goes. So I'm just going to paste this here. I'd already worked this out, right? It's a very complex UI, right? Something you can go through, right? I'd already worked this out. So, but I did that on a different project, right? So did that on a different project. So let's just, so for the strings, let's just say this is an image button. Okay, so of course, let's just fix this. We use apptint, right? And then, so for this, I kind of have the, let's just use, um, let's just pick up, I'm just going to use any, I think I didn't import the icons, right? So we'll work out the colors later, or probably I should just even import it. Okay, let's just, don't worry, let's just do that. 24 dp. Okay, we just because of time, right? Um, I wanted to do this from the scratch, but we didn't, just the time is not permitting me to go through all this, right? Thought I was going to be able to do that, right? So, but good thing you're intermediate, guys. So some of these things you just figure it out, right? Okay, so these are just viewing days, Saturday. So this is more like a calendar. I'm going to show you that. Um, okay, let's just take this out. Mm, so I'm still going to use the scatter for now for most of the icons, and then we'll add them back later, right? So okay, so I think that's right about that. Um, so okay, so of course we're going to actually sort this out. Needed to, okay, you know what? Let me bring back a few things like and then I think the color. Hold on. Okay, so we don't have this brick red, right? Yeah. So let's create a color resource value. Then I think this is fine. Okay, right. So okay, so I think that's that. I can take this ones out. Just this can just be what they are. Okay, so for this, let's see if we can get uh let's see if we can get a sort, right? Yeah. I just pick up a sort. See if we can have anything on sorting. Okay, yeah. Okay, black is fine. Call this IC sort. Okay, so yeah, let's just take out these fonts. Just use this for now. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I think this is just that. Hope I didn't delete anything again. Okay. Okay, so this is just the cover, right? It's just the cover. So we'll actually fix out a few things. Well, let's move to the what's it called? We're looking at two things. So this is just going to be what we just did now is just the cover image, right? But to have also the description, right? We want to also have the description. So I think I need to make sure that we have the right background here. Okay, need to make sure we have the right background here. So I think I'm going to add a background color, right? I'm going to add a background color. So okay, so the whole of this is a view, right? And then we have another view and have a date, right? And then we have each of these guys, right? So these are just dates, right? These are just dates. So because we're going to do a date selector, right? These are just dates, right? And then these are days, right? These are days. We'll probably just make it, let's use the short forms, right? Let's use the short forms. Right, and then okay, so yeah, so we still have a few things, right? Going to, of course, it's just this, so we're going to move all these guys down, right? We'll move them down. But I want to set need to set something. Let's see. Okay, so our view, where's this guy? Okay, for our dates, okay. Okay, this is black. Well, I think we can use black. Okay, so let's move on, right? So the next thing is the description, right? Description layout, right? Let's set up the description layout. So that's actually I need to get I need to give it an actual color, right? So you get to see it. So let's look at this. Let's change this. Let me call this a gray. And let's change the color code to I think we can just use this. So I want to change this to gray. Right. So that's just for this guy. Okay, so yeah, let's move on. Okay, so we have our date selector, right? Which is just a view, right? And then we have the date, this is just a bar on top, and then we have each of these dates, right? So since these guys are all here, so let's put this to okay. let's put this to below the rating, right? Let's see. Okay, yeah, the whole of this. So yeah, I just want to see something. Okay, so that pushed that out. Okay. So when we're switching, right, that would actually, when we get to use the constraint set, that would actually, will adjust that. Okay, but let's move on. I think we just need one more thing, right? So I need another view. I'm going to call it the description. Right. So for this description view, I'm just going to copy everything, right? But I'll copy everything here, right? And modify the constraints. That's just what I'm going to do. So I'll just copy everything we have and then modify the constraints, right? Okay, so okay, so let's do something. So for our view, this our view here, right? This our view. I did selector view. I think I want to make a few adjustments, right? Um okay, let's just do this. So bottom of the one, so the end should be to the one, right? Let's start. So we're basically just changing how it would look, right? Just for us from a description perspective, right? That's basically what we are just doing. We're changing how it will look from it. When you click on description, right? You would want to see it look in a particular. You want to see it look in a particular way, right? So that's actually what we are doing right now. So let me just be sure that from a description point, I basically want to have in the description, what do we want to have? It's fine for us to have the menu button, right? It's fine for us to have the menu button. We can, of course, we also need the cover, right? The image cover. In the description, we need our guidelines to still keep things the way they are, right? But I think I'm going to make an adjustment, right, to the second guideline, right? I don't want 85. Let me do a 40 for the guideline. So you then see that it kind of moves this image so we can see something else. That's basically what. So in this description, when you click on it, the movie moves this way, right? And then we have space this other way to see other things, right? Okay. Next up, let's look at mm, our movie title, right? So let's see. What do we do? Let's see. Okay, so we need our status, right? Still need to keep the status the way it actually what is, right? We need to keep the status the way it is. Um, let's see. But now, I think for status, we're going to change. So we're going to just say, let it be end to start of parent, right? And let's say the top to bottom of menu button. I think we have already top to bottom of menu button. Okay. Then yeah, that's actually fine. We'll just keep us just those two. We want to just move out that basically. And then let's move. So we still have our um cover image. So our movie title is still there, right? But what happens to the movie title, right? What happens to the movie title from a description view perspective. We still want the start to be 16 dp. The top should be 8 dp. Sorry about that. Top should be 8 dp, right? And then let's see, what else do we want to so the top should, so we want this for the movie title, top to bottom of the menu button, right? And then I want the bottom to the top of description, which that's where it actually is. And then let's see, starts to end of the cover. Let's do so take out this guideline and say starts to end of cover, right? Okay, and then that's giving us, that's kind of pushing. Remember, we want to decide this other space here now should now be for the description. So we have our bottom to top of that, starts to end of this, right? Top to bottom of the menu, right? And then we'll still keep our chain style, but we're also going to add a vertical bias. Just say bias. So a constraint vertical bias, right? Just going to put 0.0. So that kind of just moves that to the top here, right? That moves that to, you know, to the top, right? Okay, so what next? So let's look at the our description, right? So how do we want our description to look like, right? So we want starts to the end of cover, right? Starts to the end of cover, right? So you see that starts there. Now we also want the bottom to be to the top of the description. Okay, no, sorry. Bottom to the top of rating is fine. Yeah, bottom to the top of rating, that's fine. Let's see. Okay, so let's the top go to the bottom of the okay. Yeah. No, nah. Let's stay at that place. Good. And then let's see, what next do we do? We have our DPS. I think that's actually also fine. Yes, we can actually just keep that, right? We can actually just keep that for now, right? For now, let me just do this. Now, for our rating, right? How do we want our rating to be? You can see where it is. And of course, we definitely do not want that. So it should be starts to end of cover, right? So start to end of cover, right? And then a margin start of 16 dp. So I could just change this to start, right? So that kind of pushes that up a bit, right? So top to the bottom of description is fine, right? Yeah, so this is actually okay, right? Yeah, this is fine. This is actually okay, right? The only thing I'm going to add here, so I think this is fine. Yeah, this is okay. From at least from the perspective of how I would want to see the description, this is actually fine. But let's say the bottom should be to the top of the cast. Yes, so the bottom should be to the top of the cast. Okay, so now let's now look at our cast. So how do we want our casts to look like right now, right? How do we want our cast to look like on it from the description perspective? Okay, so we still want this, right? I think we'll still keep our dimension ratio, right? The only thing I'm going to do, let's say from our starts one, so the start to the For the first cast, I want it to be end to start of cast 3, right? Right, end to start of cast 3, right? And then of course, we'll keep our horizontal bias, right? We'll also keep the dimension ratio, right? We'll also keep that one. Our chain style, of course, is still present. Then I'm going to say start to end of the cover, right? So the start should be to the end of the cover. So you can see, we're seeing the cast right now. Okay. So for the cast 2, right? Let's see. So we have cast 2, cast 3. What's this other one? Okay, we'll fix that. So our cast 2, right? Okay, so let's look at our cast 2. What do we want to do here, right? So let's do, first of all, I'm going to take out this bottom constraint, right? So the bottom should be to the bottom of cast 3, right? Should be to the bottom of cast 3. Okay, so let's just do that here. Bottom to bottom of cast 3, right? We'll do that there. What again? Let's say, so let's do this. So the end should be to the start of the button, right? Okay, I think yeah, but the start should be to the end of cast 3, right? That constrains that. Then the almighty cast 3 that we have actually been playing with, right? Which is the one that's actually in the middle, right? So I'm going to change this to the height h11, right? And then let's see. So we have bottom to, so for the cast 3, the bottom should be to the bottom of cast 1. So bottom to bottom of cast 1, right? The end, right? The end should be to the start of cast 2. I think that actually is fine. Well, then okay, yeah. So I think we have that, and then of course, okay. So for our cast 3, I'm going to actually use this. Okay. So let me zoom in a bit and see. It seems something has. Okay, so our cast 2 top constraint has gone up. So we'll just do top to top of this guy, right? Okay, so we have this space here, right? So let's see. First of all, let me add a start here. Okay, okay. I think I already have a start here. Now, for this cast 3, I also have a start here, so I'm just going to clear that out. That's what is giving that space. Okay, so that's, yeah, I think we're getting our description, right? Trying to get the description how it would look. Okay, so for the button right now, what do we have? Okay, so I'm going to so for the button, let's leave that bottom margin, give it an end margin of 16 dp, right? Now for the constraints, we're going to use, so the bottom of it should be constrained to the bottom of cast 2, right? And then the top of it should also be constrained to the top of cast 2 also, right? Now, so the next thing we're going to do is so let's give it a horizontal bias of let's do 0.5, right? just keep that there, shift out a bit. And then so I think as that starts to the end of this, to the top to the, and then the bottom to the bottom of cast 2. So that just keeps that button right there. Okay, that just keeps that button right there. So for here, let me just say 9 plus. So let's say we have hold on. Okay. So yeah, not missing a constraint. So let's okay. Okay, good. So this kind of stretches them out, right? Okay, so for a text size, right? Could actually just do a 12, right? Or probably 10. We kind of don't want it to be. Okay, don't worry, we can just leave that. Focus on that later. Let's look at the whole constraining stuff, right? Okay, so like I said, I'd actually done this stuff before, so trying to replicate it for you guys. Okay, so for the description, right? You could actually just constrain that here, or we constrain it to the guideline, right? Whichever one you prefer. You can actually constrain it to the guideline or to yeah, but let's before that, just after our button, right? Okay. So I'm moving for let's see. So let's see what we can do for the movie info. Let's say a start. Let's give it a start um of 24 dp. Now I know our text is big, so we'll make it small. Let's do text appearance. Text appearance. Don't worry, I'm just going to pick the text appearance compact small. Still a bit big, but well, let's just move on. I think this is fine. I just need to, the end should be to the end of the parent, right? And then start should be to the start of what are we using here? The right guideline, right? So that's actually fine. And so you can just skip this, right? This can just be okay, whatever description that you want to give about that particular image, right? And then of course, um a description button that is actually here, right? So let's now bring it down, right? So of course we have our margin starts. Let's give it a start margin. A start margin of 16 dp, right? But of course, let's constrain it. So we see, so once the start of this, I'm going to just take out this constraint size here, right? So I'm going to say the start of it should be to the end of the parent, right? And then the top should be to the top of the movie title. So the top of our movie title, right? So you can see this is here. But first of all, let me, we don't want this, I don't want this tint, right? Let me get back to my sort. And then, yeah, I can still leave that. And then let's, okay, so let's add something to, okay, let's just leave that there. This, okay, so we'll get that to be there. So let that just stay there. We're going to use it later. Okay, so next up, what do we have here? Our view, right? So we're basically going to, so I'm going to add something here. We're going to add something to this guy, right? I'm going to add a barrier, right? Remember I talked about a barrier, right? I'm going to add a barrier for this description, right? I'm going to add a barrier. We talked about barrier, right? So let's see, the width should just be wrap contents, the height should just be wrap content, and then it has what we call a barrier direction attribute, which I want the direction should be to the bottom. And then so we're going to do how the barrier you want to create, right? What views are you referencing, right? So there's a reference IDs, right? So what are we referencing? So this barrier covers the covered, we want the cast, okay, cast 2, cast 1, right? And then also the button, also want to capture the button, and then right. So that's basically what we are creating, this barrier here, right? You can actually see it. You see this barrier now, you can just see this here, right? You can see this here. So let me just do this, right? Let's just use this. There's this property, but just for seeing layout editor, right? Yeah, if I remember. But absolute y, this is the absolute y, just to see how this, no, let's say 260p. Okay. So okay. Let me take this guy now. So what I'm going to do is our movie info, I'm going to let it be to the start of the barrier, right? That's what I want to do at movie info. So instead of that, so to the start of our barrier, right? So it kind of it just spreads out a bit, right? That's just the essence of that. So but I want to, I kind of still want to give it a bit of let me see. So ID. Okay. So that's good. So that it kind of just description, because this place is the description, just to keep a description of the um movie, right? So it can have a lot of things, right? It can have a lot of things here. Okay, so you can see things are beginning to take shape on the description. So from a description perspective, right? This one just shows you the cover, right? But this is more like the description. So we have this one, right? We have this one, we have this one, right? So we're going to use we'll now use an animation and a constraint to be able to move to the two. That's the idea, right? But let's just finish up quickly. I think we should be done. Let's see, hopefully in the next, if we can't finish this, then of course we'll just finish up in the next class, right? But yeah, let's see how much, or I'll finish it up and then we'll go through the code, right? But let's just but basically just using some of these some of the stuff we talked on the slides, the various constraints as constraint layout features, right? Okay, so we've looked into the of added a barrier, which you can see this is just the barrier. So what and what does not cross this barrier? The cover, the cast, the whole of this cast is button, right? So that's just the barrier, and the direction is at the bottom, right? And then we have our view, and then we have okay, so let's continue. So what do we want to make any changes on this view? I think this is actually let's see. Okay, so just let's actually do something. So let's say a top margin of 36 dB, right? Let's push that out a bit, right? And then I want a constraint, a bottom constraint. Let's say bottom to bottom of parent. Yeah, I know it's going to bottom to bottom of parents, right? Good. So I kind of want this color. So it's a view. So you see, it just change that part, right? The color, right? So it's kind of separates your description from this other part of the listen. So that's basically what I'm trying to do here. So end to the end of parent is fine. Start to the start of parent is fine, right? And then top to the bottom of the, so we're going to say top to bottom of the movie info, right? Right. So the top to the bottom of the movie info, right? So there's a bit of space. right? So that's actually that. We could just add um let's do, yeah, okay, just to fix that. Okay, and then of course our date selector now also need to make adjustments to it, definitely, right, on the on this view. So the margin top here was just going to be 36, right? And then of course we're going to still leave our Android color and our padding left and padding right and stuff like that, right? So it's going to be constrained. The bottom to the bottom of the one is fine, that and then so this is basically okay. You can see this is actually better. So, and then after that, we also have this black bar, right? That's also okay. I don't think we're not making any changes to that, right? So our date one, right, is still fine, right? It's still fine, right? Date one to, um, let's see. Okay, so we don't have any, we're not making any changes, right? So I'm just going to take out this horizontal bias. Let's see. I think so far we're good to go. I just need to okay, so this dates one, well, the margin top, let's, I think we'll probably increase that a bit, right, so that the number is visible. I think this is better, right? This is better. This is better. So yeah, that's actually better. That's better. So same, so date two is fine, right? They're all okay, right? I don't think the spacing and everything. I know there's inconsistency with the uh texts and everything, but don't worry, that's not a big deal, right? That's not a big deal. Okay, so let's switch out from the dates, right? And the days. Let's just switch out a bit, right? And then let's get to we're gonna add something else. So we have a button here that we actually need. So now of course this whole thing is not in a scroll view, else you'd see it, but let's just do some. So 60 dp, let's see. So this is going to be a button where you can probably book, let's say book to see the movie. Our text appearance is large. I don't think we want to kind of change anything here, so I think this is still fine. um Okay, so we have our text view. So those are the two text views that are actually there, right? But I think we are good to go. Okay, so let's just because of time, right? Because of time. So we end probably in the next 5 minutes, right? So because of time, I'm going to let's get into have probably testing this out, right? Um, so let's add a few animations, right? Let's add a few animations, and we're going to animate the transition from one layout to another using constraint set, right? We're going to do that using constraint set. So we'll go to our main activity, right? So first of all, how we actually do this is we'll basically define it the initial constraint set. Okay, the initial one. Now so the initial constraint step, basically I'll just say about initial constraint, and then it's going to be what constraint set uh class, right? Remember I said it's a class. And then we're now going to do initial constraints dot clone, and then we'll pass in what we call root. Now don't worry, we'll just pass that in. I'll actually clear that out. So but basically what we want to do here, right, is to the root here is the ID of the main constraint layout, right? Constraints. So I didn't set up, I'm not sure I set up view binding here. So it means that we probably have to do a probably have to do a few find view by IDs and all those stuff like that, right? But well, that's actually fine. That's actually fine. So this actually should represent the root of the main constraint layout, which is in our activity main. So what I'm just going to do is give this guy an ID. So just getting the ID of our constraint, our root layout, right, in the activity main, right, .xml. Okay. Then, so the next thing we're now going to do is also get, I'm going to now create, so this is the initial constraint, right? So I'm going to create a cover constraint, right? I'm going to create a cover constraint, just a constraint set, and then I'll now say cover constraint dot clone, and then what's it cloning? First of all, I'll pass in the context, which is this, and then I'll say r dot layout dot cover view, or cover layout rather, which is what we named it, right? So this is to define the cover constraints, right? So this defines cover constraints. Now, what's the next thing? So in that, so I want to initiate the transition from the main layout to the cover layout, right? When you click on the cover image, right? So when you click on this image, right? When you click on this, I want to initiate that. So I'm going to, the ID here is cover, but let's just get another, so image, call it our cover image, right? Section of type image view, cover. I think in the coming classes, we'll actually just do set up a few things. So I'll say cover image dot set on click listener. And then I'm going to call, we have a transition manager class, right? Dot begin delayed transition. So begin delayed transition from our roots, right? Begin that, and then I'll now call our cover constraint, right? Which dot apply to root, right? So that's basically how that was. So another thing we can also do based on animation, right? A few other things we can also do. So let me see if I can run this, but a few other things that we'll also do is to want to actually create an animation, right? I want to create an animation in this design, in this UI, so that our texts, the text buttons that we have, you know, would actually change the color, right? From probably black to white during this. So if this was black, and then probably will change, the background can change to black, and then the text change to white, that kind of animation, how can we actually do that, right? Okay, so that's very simple, right? Just going to say, first of all, we'll have what to call a value animator, right? Can actually go check this out, right? A value animator. Okay. So I'm going to say a name dot set values. You can actually set values, set your let's use int values, right? Let me see, do I have, okay, color dot black, and then color dot white. So these are just right, and then it has another method called the set evaluator, right? And then we'll use the RGB evaluator actually. So and then after setting that, we now add an update listener. to listen for updates. So so what we're now saying is this: when that transition is about to take place, right, we'll now set a color filter and some of all these things. So what I will do, let me just give a sample, right? Sample code for that. Let's say I get the menu, but let me see. We're going to the cover layout, right? So let's see. I think we have, yeah, so these are menu button, right? So let's get this ID. It's an image button. So val, oh, sorry, not here. Yeah, don't worry. I'm actually doing multiple things. So val menu button of type image button. Of course, to find view by ID, r.id dot think menu button. So just for an example, I could now say that the set menu button dot set color filter, right? And then I'm going to pass in, just going to say it dot the animated value, and then the animated value as what, an integer, right? That's basically what we're going to do. So that gets, so the it there is the value animator, right? About value animator, so you get it as an almost like a cast type, right? Gets it as an what, integer. So you can do that. You can also do set text dot set text color to the actual text, right? Which is this movie status. You can actually set the text color, right? You can set the movie title, everything. Like you can just set anything using that, right? And then but a few things after that, you can actually do set the duration, right? You can set the duration, right? And then after that, of course, you have to now what, start the anim, your what, value animator, right? So that gives you a way to animate those things. You can also even animate your date selector, right? You can actually animate your date selector actually, right? But we won't be, well, I don't think we'll have the time for that, right? I don't think I have the time. We'll have the time for that. So what we're going to do is I'll going to finish up the code, and then I'm going to upload it on GitHub, and then I'm going to push this right to GitHub. So your job, and then I'll actually tell you what your task is going to be. Meanwhile, I'm going to also drop a link where you're going to send in the task I gave you for the what's it called, for the notebook application, right? So we're going to make some editing. So this is how we're going to do it. I'll still explain it in the task. When you push your code, you're going to create a branch, right? For this particular, we're going to actually use the branching system in GitHub for most of these things, right? So currently you're going to push your code to GitHub, which I believe you have for the notebook application. Right now, the next task I'm going to give to you concerning that notebook application will be done on a different branch, right? So you will branch out of what you have currently, and I will let you know what to do, right? You're basically going to apply some animation stuff to what you have currently, but I need to see it. So I'll be dropping a link. You're going to send the GitHub link and the hosted link. You host it on the hosting platform that we'll be using. I can't what's the name? Someone remind me. The hosting platform that we use. What Advertise link? Yes. So Advertise. So you host it on Advertise. Thank you very much. Right. So I get to see. So I want to see the transition from the various pages that you've done. With just the UI I gave to you, that's what I want. But I just want to see it. Right. So that should be done before the end of today. Right. Once you have done that, then I'll send in your task, and then you apply a few constraints stuff to your current design, one of which definitely is going to be the constraint set, right? And a few other things to kind of make it more appealing, right? So that's basically that. I'm going to push an update to push this code, right? I'll push this code, and then in the next class we'll finish it up. We'll finish it up in the next class, actually. Yes, we'll finish it up in the next class, and then we'll get to moving on to much more complex stuff. The notebook application is what we're going to basically use to learn. But I kind of wanted to, explain, just play around with the constraint layout a bit and see how much we can actually do with the constraint layout. It's actually a very, very powerful layout, right? So that's basically that for today. Okay, so thank you guys very much for your time.